The war that changed everything. The battle was supposed to be another routine engagement. The Drask Dominion, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, had launched a campaign to crush a rebellious system on the galactic frontier. Their fleets, vast and bristling with the latest weaponry, moved with the precision of a war machine that had conquered hundreds of worlds. The resistance was expected to be minimal, a handful of outdated ships, desperate fighters, and planetary defenses that wouldn't last an hour against the Dominion's firepower. But something unexpected happened. As the Dominion's warships entered the system and prepared for their overwhelming assault, their long-range scanners detected an anomaly. At first, it was dismissed as sensor interference, but soon, the truth became undeniable. Something was there. Something massive, moving with unnatural precision. Then, the transmission came. A single voice, calm and commanding, cut through every frequency. This system is now under human protection. Retreat immediately, or be annihilated. The arrival of the human warship, the Dominion's fleet commander, High Warlord Karvok, was not one to be intimidated by words. He had crushed countless fleets and burned entire civilizations to the ground. The idea that some unknown species, humans, as they called themselves, could stand against the might of the Dominion was laughable. But then, the human warship arrived. It didn't emerge from hyperspace with the bright flash characteristic of most starships. It didn't decelerate with the lumbering momentum of a traditional capital ship. Instead, it appeared, as if reality itself had bent around it, pulling it into existence with eerie precision. The ship was unlike anything the Dominion had ever seen. It wasn't sleek and elegant like the high-tech warships of the Galactic Council, nor was it a brutal, jagged behemoth like the Dominion's own battleships. It was a monolith, a dark, angular construct covered in unknown plating, its surface almost consuming the light around it. No energy emissions, no visible weapons, no apparent weaknesses. And yet, the Dominion's most advanced scanners registered only one thing: power beyond comprehension. First contact, a mistake that cost them everything. The Dominion's fleet did what it always did when facing resistance. It attacked. Hundreds of plasma cannons ignited, unleashing an unstoppable barrage. Missiles designed to level planets streaked toward the unknown vessel. Supercharged particle lances, capable of slicing through entire battle cruisers, converged on the ship's dark hull. But before the first volley even landed, the human warship responded. There was no visible activation, no charging of weapons, no detectable energy buildup. And yet, in an instant, the leading Dominion destroyers ceased to exist, not destroyed, not broken apart, erased. Their energy signatures vanished. Their hulls turned to dust in the void. The crew never had time to scream. It was as if the universe had rewritten itself, deciding that those ships had never been there in the first place. Panic spread through the Dominion's ranks. Their weapons were useless. Their best defenses were meaningless. Warlord Karvok, who had never known fear, felt an unfamiliar chill creep into his bones. The counterattack that never came, desperation took hold. The Dominion fleet reorganized, attempting to surround the human vessel. They launched waves of interceptors, deploying electromagnetic countermeasures, kinetic bombardments, and even experimental warheads that had never been used in real combat. None of it mattered. The human warship didn't evade, didn't counterfire, didn't even seem to react. It simply existed. An unmoving, silent force that rewrote the rules of war itself. Then, with the same eerie efficiency, it struck again. Entire battleships vanished in seconds. The Dominion's flagships, fortresses in space, crumbled as unseen. Forces shattered their hulls at the molecular level. Shielding technologies that had withstood supernova-level blasts were peeled away like paper. And still, the human vessel did not broadcast threats or ultimatums. It simply removed anything that stood in its way. The message that shook the galaxy as. The remnants of the Dominion fleet scrambled to escape. The warship finally transmitted its final message. This was your only warning. Then, just as it had appeared, it was gone. No hyperspace signature. No trace of its passage. The battle had lasted mere minutes, yet the consequences would last forever. The aftermath, And the fear that followed word spread like wildfire. The Dominion, an empire feared across the stars, had suffered its first true defeat. Not at the hands of an enemy fleet, not through years of grinding war, but through a single ship. The Galactic Council demanded answers. Who were the humans? Where had they come from? How had they built such technology? Every intelligence agency, every historian, every surviving warlord scrambled to find even the smallest piece of information. The few scattered records of humanity spoke of a species that had once been part of the galactic community, but had disappeared thousands of years ago. No known colonies, no traceable homeworld, no remaining settlements. Some believed they had perished, others thought they had chosen isolation. But now, one thing was clear. They had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The hunt for answers. A frightened galaxy responds. The battle was over, but its consequences had only begun to unfold. Across the galactic community, shockwaves rippled through every major power. The Drask Dominion, once the unchallenged conquerors of countless systems, had been reduced to frightened survivors, whispering about a single warship that defied all known logic. But they were not the only ones affected. The Galactic Council, a coalition of the most advanced civilizations, convened an emergency session. Holograms of panicked diplomats flickered in the grand chambers of the Central Spire, a station orbiting the neutral world of Valtrex 9. Some demanded an immediate investigation, others called for diplomacy, while the most fearful voices urged preemptive action. Yet, there was one glaring problem. Nobody knew where to find the humans. Theories and speculation. The forgotten race returns. Until now, humanity had been nothing more than a footnote in ancient galactic archives. Most scholars dismissed the records as myths, tales of a species that had risen, warred, and vanished long before the first great empires had even been founded. What little remained of their history suggested they had once been a part of the galactic stage, coexisting with other species. But something had changed. The few surviving records painted a disturbing picture. Humanity had once been a technologically advanced civilization, eager to explore and interact with the wider galaxy. Yet, after a series of devastating conflicts, they had simply disappeared. Their worlds were abandoned, their cities left in ruins, their colonies wiped from existence. No one knew whether they had been exterminated, gone into hiding, or evolved into something else entirely. And now, they had returned, armed with technology that defied explanation. The Drask's desperation, seeking the unthinkable. For the Drask Dominion, defeat was not just a military failure, it was an existential crisis. Their entire empire had been built on dominance, on the belief that no force could oppose them. Now that belief was shattered. Desperate to reclaim their honor, the Dominion dispatched their most elite intelligence teams to uncover the truth. Thousands of agents scoured ancient databases, interrogated alien historians, and even raided long-forgotten tomb worlds in search of anything related to humanity. One name kept appearing: the Void War. It was an event so ancient that even the oldest species in the galaxy barely remembered it. A war unlike any other, fought in the darkness between stars, where entire civilizations had been consumed by something far more advanced than they could comprehend. And at the heart of it all, the record spoke of a single entity: the Terran Imperium. What was the Terran Imperium? The term was chilling. An imperium was no mere republic, no scattered collection of colonies. It was a force, absolute, unyielding. The fragmented records suggested that humanity had once ruled an empire spanning thousands of systems. But it was not an empire of bureaucrats or diplomats. It was an empire of warriors. They had fought wars that reshaped entire star clusters. They had fielded weapons that bent the very laws of physics. They had engineered warships that could destroy fleets without firing a single shot. And then, they had vanished. No one knew what had happened. Some speculated that their own creations had turned against them. Others believed they had ascended beyond physical existence. But now, with the arrival of the mysterious warship, the galaxy had its answer. The Imperium had never died. It had merely been waiting. The Council's decision, a reckless gamble. As intelligence reports flooded in, the Galactic Council faced an impossible choice. Some argued for diplomacy. If the humans were as advanced as they seemed, provoking them could mean extinction. Others, particularly those from the Dominion, called for immediate action. The decision was made. A task force would be sent into uncharted space, searching for humanity's homeworld. It was a dangerous gamble. If the humans saw this as an act of aggression, it could trigger a war that no one could win. But the alternative, waiting, doing nothing, was even more terrifying. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was united by a common fear, and deep in the void, hidden among the stars, humanity was watching. Humanity's return, the awakening of an ancient power. The expedition to find humanity's homeworld was doomed before it even began. The Galactic Council had assembled, its most advanced ships, crewed by the finest scientists, diplomats, and warriors the galaxy had to offer. Their mission was simple: make contact, establish communication, and, if necessary, determine the extent of the threat posed by the Terran Imperium. But what they found was beyond their worst nightmares. The silent graveyard of Earth, the task force, followed the faint remnants of ancient star maps, tracing the forgotten paths once traveled by the lost human empire. It led them to the Sol system, an aging star surrounded by ruins, planets with shattered moons, asteroid belts filled with derelict ships, and at the heart of it all, Earth, or rather what remained of it. Where lush continents and vast oceans should have been, there was only a scorched wasteland, pockmarked with the remnants of long-dead cities. Towering megastructures, half collapsed, jutted into the sky like the skeletal remains of giants. The planet was lifeless, its atmosphere barely capable of sustaining even the simplest of organisms. Had humanity truly perished? Sensors detected no signs of civilization, no cities, no industries, no life signals. Earth was a tomb. The riddle of the dead world, but something wasn't right. The ruins were old, too old. They did not belong to a species that had only recently returned to the stars. They belonged to a people who had vanished eons ago. And yet, humanity had clearly returned. The warship that had annihilated the Drask fleet was no relic. It was new, operational, and wielding technology centuries ahead of anything the rest of the galaxy could comprehend. If Earth was dead, where had the Terran Imperium been hiding? The first and last warning, the task force sent a signal, a broadcast into the void, an open message to any human remnants that might still exist. For hours, nothing happened. The fleet drifted in eerie silence, their signals vanishing into the abyss. Then, without warning, space itself seemed to bend. A ship, if it could even be called that, emerged from the void. It did not travel through normal space. It manifested as if reality had momentarily rewritten itself to accommodate its presence. It dwarfed anything the Council had ever seen. Its hull was made of materials that sensors could barely comprehend, shifting and reforming like a living organism. Ancient symbols, pulsing with an eerie blue glow, ran along its surface. It bore no weapons that could be identified, yet every officer aboard the Council ships felt an unshakable dread. Then came the transmission. A single voice, deep and measured, speaking in a language that had not been heard for millennia. Perfect galactic standard. You were warned once before. Do not seek us again. There will not be a second warning. The ship did not attack. It did not need to. Every vessel in the task force suddenly lost power. Shields flickered out. Weapons refused to respond. Even life, support systems struggled, as if the very essence of technology had been undone by the presence of this ship. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the ship vanished back into the void. Power was restored moments later. The task force, battered and shaken, wasted no time turning back. The truth revealed, the Imperium never fell. When the fleet returned, their report sent the entire galaxy into chaos. The truth was undeniable. Humanity had never been wiped out. They had simply left to evolve beyond the limits of ordinary civilizations. Left to forge a new destiny in the deepest reaches of space, where no one could follow. They had watched as younger races rose and fought among themselves, as empires crumbled and new ones took their place. They had only intervened once, long ago during the Void War, a conflict that had nearly unmade the fabric of the universe itself. After that, they vanished, withdrawing to the unknown reaches of space, waiting. Now they had returned, not to conquer, not to rule, but to issue a single, terrifying warning. Do not seek us. Do not follow. Do not make the mistake of believing that the galaxy is yours. And so, the galactic community was left with a chilling reality. The Terran Imperium had not fallen. It had ascended, and if they ever chose to return in force, the galaxy would know true fear.